We're live.
Okay, awesome. Hello, Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. Welcome to the Shabbat Assembly. My name is Eva, she, her, hers, and I'm here with Nico and Nico Gardner-Serna, Jenna Stambaugh, and Will York, who is an immigration attorney. Very excited to have Will here. And just so y'all know, this is Never Again, Action Tennessee. Never Again is an organization of Jews, immigrants, and allies who want to abolish ICE and dismantle the detainment camps and get people out, and want to make sure that there is a just and compassionate immigration system in the United States. We as Jews want to do for folks what we wish people had done for us, right? So that's what Never Again is. And we thought we would do Free Them All Fridays because Friday at sunset every Friday is Shabbat. It's our 25 hours of rest that we do every week. And so this is kind of like the pregame to the pregame of getting ready for Shabbat. So again, my name is Eva, she, her, hers, and we also have Nico. Nico, say hi.
Hi, I'm Nico. Use he, him pronouns, also with Never Again.
Awesome. And Jenna, please say hi.
Jenna, also with Never Again, and she, her pronouns.
And Will?
Hi, my name is Will. I go by he, him, or they, them. I'm not with Never Again. I'm not that cool. I am with the National Lawyers Guild.
Awesome. Thank you. So this week, we want to talk a little bit about this week, and then we'll talk to Will in a couple of minutes about his work and some things about immigration that you might not know, and also how COVID is affecting what's going on in the detainment camps and how it's affecting his work. So we did an awesome phone zap today. It seems like a lot of people called your governors and your elected officials. The feedback I got was that the script was pretty easy to use, very user-friendly. So we will continue to do that every Friday, demanding from our governor and our elected officials that we abolish ICE and free them all Fridays. So that's basically the summary of the week, except for Jenna did as the Eastern coordinator of Never Again Action Tennessee did a car action. Jenna, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I went as the Eastern coordinator of Never Again, but most of the kudos and everything for this goes to Akin, which is an organization here in Knoxville that does a lot of work on immigration issues, a lot of the same topics that we cover here at Never Again. And they're the ones that really were the ones organizing this and putting it together and putting their necks out there and putting all the energy into it. So they really deserve the kudos there. All I did was show up, but I did show up, and it was a car action. We were responsible in these COVID times that we're in. And we drove around the downtown area by the city county building, and the sheriff's department also has an office right there kind of built into it. And we were driving around and honking our horns and making a whole lot of noise at them.
Yeah, make some noise. Woo!
Her to get people out of those camps.
Yeah, let's get those people out of those camps. Thank you for doing that, Jenna. That's awesome. And of course, we definitely need a coordinator on the western side of the state. So if any Jews or immigrants want to become a member of Never Again and do some work in Memphis in the western part of the state, we will definitely, Jenna, Nico, and I will definitely hook you up. We will train you. we will make it easy for you to do some organizing. Okay. So thank you, Jenna, for doing that. Mazel tov. So we like to do at Shabbat Assembly the Mazel of the week. It's kind of like a shout out. But last week, our Nico wasn't here when we did the Mazel. So last week our Mazel of the week was Nico Gardner Cerna.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you. Very kind.
Yes. Nico is a recent graduate of Vanderbilt. He is an amazing organizer, activist. He is a COVID kid. He's a COVID student who graduated against all the odds, and the whole time with all the stressors, still has been a staunch supporter of Never Again and one of our main organizers. So mazel tov to Nico for graduating.
Thank you.
And for generally being awesome.
Oh, that's way too sweet. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's true. Now the mazel this week is Doctors for Camp Closure. Doctors for Camp Closure is a group of doctors and other healthcare workers that want the camps, the detainment camps, to be closed down. And that is super important. And this week they did a 48-hour action, 9 ICE facilities across the United States. Because 871 people in detainment camps have tested positive for COVID, and those are people that have access to tests. So we know it's a lot more. So I want to shout out to the Doctors for Camp Closure. Mazel tov to you for doing that work, and for caring, and for not stopping. So mazel to Doctors for Camp Closure. And of course, Doctors for Camp Closure are in close solidarity with Never Again Action. So mazel tov to them. So Will.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi.
It's such a delight to be with you guys in the second week of your Shabbat shout out or whatever it is.
Shabbat Assembly. Shabbat Assembly.
Yeah, Shabbat Assembly.
Kind of like the General Assembly we used to do at Occupy.
I like Shabbat shout out a little bit more personally, but
okay, well maybe we'll change it just for you.
I'm just kidding, but yeah, great job to Doctors Against the Camps, and to all of you folks for really fighting hard against all the odds. Really amazing work that this group has done, even in a short amount of time.
Well,
it seems like it was just yesterday that I was out with Never Again Action Middle Tennessee at the core civic headquarters at the beginning of this pandemic. So
right.
That was not that long ago, it seems like.
It
seems like forever ago, but also not that long ago.
That was about 7 weeks ago. Do you want to talk about why you were there, or what role you played, and why we were there a little bit? And then kind of transition into the work you're doing? Yeah.
Sure. I was there as a legal observer. I volunteer as a legal observer with the National Lawyers Guild. One of the things that we do is we monitor protest activities, First Amendment protected activities, to ensure that the police are not infringing on basic constitutional rights. So we're there to document, and we're not there to intervene. We're not there to be police liaisons, but we are there to document any abnormalities or aberrations in the way law enforcement acts. And since Core Civic has moved its headquarters to Brentwood, Tennessee, even though the Never Again group was on the sidewalk, the police presence there was high, was a significant show of force. And that was just on a Sunday evening on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty intimidating, and there was a couple of new members of Never Again there, and I think it really scared them. So that was a little upsetting. But we were there at Core Civic because they are complicit in the deaths of thousands and thousands, maybe millions at this point, of incarcerated people. A lot of those people are in detainment camps, and Core Civic and Geo Group run most of the detainment camps. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of the difficulties that detainees go through, Will? And
Yeah,
also,
sure.
if Nico or Jenna have any questions, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, feel free to jump in. I love taking questions and just kind of having a dialogue. So a lot of my work, I represent immigrants in my practice every day, pretty much. Doing family-based immigration predominantly, but also working with trafficking victims, predominantly labor trafficking, and we do, pretty much anything that touches on immigration law. Of course, one of the items that we have to deal with, unfortunately, is immigration detention. A lot of people are very, very confused about what immigration detention is.
Yeah.
And so Eva was asked me to kind of talk about what immigration detention is, where it happens, the conditions there, and how pandemic has affected how these contractors have responded to these detention contractors have responded. Immigration detention is civil detention. So if you are arrested by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you are in civil detention. That means not criminal detention.
Right.
As you can imagine, there are two types of detention that you can be under: civil detention and criminal detention. Criminal detention requires probable cause and certain legal requirements, right?
Right.
Civil detention, on the other hand, is different. Civil detention is there not to punish, but to simply detain for the benefit of the society. So, for example, you may think of people who are involuntarily committed, right, to asylums or mental health institutes. So that is a civil commitment proceeding, just like immigration detention is. So the goal of immigration detention, just as it is in mental health detention, cannot be to punish the person, right? It's there ostensibly to protect the public. So, and immigration detention used to be fairly rare, right? Now, immigration detention has become, under President Trump, the de facto or the default position. So,
and that's really important to point out that, like, even Obama, the deporter in chief, this wasn't really the de facto way of doing things. That this is like, so kind of talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so under President Obama and prior administrations, when let's say that you were arrested by ICE in Nashville, okay, I'm just throwing that, you could say this in Knoxville or Memphis, but let's just say you're arrested in Nashville by ICE. So when ICE arrests you, they take you to their office to process you. And what they would do is they would determine, number one, if you're subject to a bond, and if you are, they would set a bond for you. If you were not able to pay the immigration bond, then or they decided that no bond was appropriate, you would be taken down to an immigration detention facility. Those are usually the destination of people who are arrested here in Middle Tennessee is one of the privately operated detention facilities in Louisiana, like Oakdale, LaSalle, Richwood. There are several large immigration detention facilities in Louisiana. These places are so isolated, it takes overnight mail 2 days to get there, right? So I think it's no accident that these detention facilities are so far away from civilization and from the detainees' family members. So,
And what are the conditions at these detainment centers that are mostly run by Core Civic or Geo Group?
pretty bad. They're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. So before the IRIRA is a law that went into effect in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
This was the Clinton administration era law that was pushed by the Republicans in the House, and the Clinton administration went right along with it. And subsequent to before IRIRA, there were very few reasons why a person would be subject to no bond immigration detention. However, after that occurred, after IRIRA occurred, there has been many more occasions where someone would be subjected to mandatory detention.
Right.
And mandatory detention, meaning no bond is even an option. And so what occurred in those cases was if you're subject to mandatory detention, then you can't even request a bond.
Right.
It's not even an option. And the grounds of mandatory detention have expanded greatly. If you've been convicted of, if you're undocumented and you've been convicted of one crime involving moral turpitude at any time in the past, and the meaning of a crime involving moral turpitude, of course, is very, very nebulous and vague. You will be subject to mandatory detention, no bond. So even though this is detention that is supposed to protect the public and that's all it's supposed to do, if you've been convicted of one of those offenses at any time in the past, without any regard to your present dangerousness, you were subject to mandatory no bond detention until your case is over with. Either you're deported or you win some form of relief from deportation. Now, what you have, if you are lucky enough to not have anything in your history that would subject you to mandatory detention, you still have to prove, the burden is on the immigrant to prove that he or she is not a danger to the public or a flight risk. Now, many people who've recently entered the country are considered flight risks just by the virtue of them not having a lot of connections or ties to the community. So, one thing that I would ask folks to do, is if anyone ever asks you to write a letter in support of their immigration bond application, please do a nice, thorough job. The person's life very well may depend on the letter that you write. So please put some thought into it. Type it up, sign it, make
Get
sure
it
you don't have any.
notarized.
Yeah, make sure you don't have any, obvious typographical or grammar errors. Because these letters that people submit in support of their bond applications, sometimes they're the only evidence they have in proving that they have connections to the community and that they're not a flight risk and not a danger to the community. So under President Obama, for example, these ICE officers, when they arrest you in Nashville, would offer you a bond. They would say, maybe, we're going to give you a $10,000 bond, $5,000 bond, whatever the case may be. Now the blanket policy is zero tolerance. Everyone is a threat. Everyone is a risk. And so
now, that's kind of crazy. Like, so, I mean, let's kind of think about that for a second, that we went from like the immigration system being kind of messed up and we were working on trying to fix it to it being a complete shit show. Like
in the second half of the Obama administration, the second term, they came out with a program called the Priority Enforcement Program. So that if you and it had its flaws, of course, but if you were arrested for a low-level crime that did not involve public safety or anything, the chances of you being picked up by ICE were small. Now we see people, once again, like it was before, arrested by ICE for no driver's license, minor traffic offenses, things of that nature. And then ICE saying, well, because of zero tolerance, we're not offering you a bond. You can take that up with the judge when you get to Louisiana.
Yeah. And the other thing is they're becoming more aggressive, right? ICE is becoming super aggressive. In fact, there was an incident. I don't know if it's okay to talk about it.
I mean, ICE is, there was a shooting in Brooklyn, for example, under this administration. Yeah.
But they picked up. Okay. So someone was shot.
A lot of things have happened during this administration as far as ICE accountability, to basically to where there's very limited accountability, if any. Since these facilities are predominantly non-criminal, non-punitive facilities, there's not a lot of cells, right? Which you would think, well, that's a good thing. We don't want there to be cells, since this is civil detention. The only people who are typically housed in cells, traditional jail cells, like we would think of them, are people who are in solitary confinement for either making a suicide attempt or threat, or who have done something, misbehaved in the detention facility. So, however, in the age of coronavirus, which is a respiratory transmitted disease, as we all know, the virus is, there is some inherent problems with having so many people in a small area with no cells, no doors, and also overcrowded conditions, because we have, everyone's a priority. So what we get are things, are things like, let me see if I can turn around my camera. Yep, there it is. So what we get are facilities like this, right? So what you're seeing here is a fairly common sight. This is kind of one big pod here. And so this is in a detention facility that looks like it was originally a warehouse, right? And that's how they bring people in, is in these large overhead doors, and they'll house you in a pen like this. So
already that it's inhumane conditions, but on top of that, we now have COVID.
Right. So this is not an ideal situation for any respiratory virus, right? I mean, you have a father and a daughter up here. You have someone laying on the floor, someone being propped up here. I mean, there are probably far too many people.
Not to mention, like, the ability to wash your hands or be clean,
right, sure.
Like that. Yeah.
So I mean, here we have a healthcare provider, who is wearing a mask, asking health questions to a child, right? This is a child facility here, and it's just chain link fence, and these are thermal blankets that you see here. But so this healthcare worker is, asking health questions. Well, that's not a very effective way of doing it either, right? I mean, because you have to be awake to answer the health questions. It doesn't work so well. So these types of scenes are very common, and does not facilitate social distancing. There is no social distancing in ICE detention facilities. As you can tell,
it's disgusting.
You will see in this picture there are some people wearing masks, but I only see a few masks in this entire pen.
Right.
Now, in one of these detention facilities, there were 2 guards who just died a couple weeks ago. Right. So, the thought is that, well, now that guards are dying of COVID-19, maybe there will be some changes to how ICE is handling their detention regulations. Now, that's a possibility. I have not seen that really substantively yet. But it is true that the number of people testing positive in ICE facilities is increasing. But I do also believe that's a virtue of ICE finally getting around to testing these detainees. Because at first, the situation was, and ICE was very proud of this, that there were no cases in ICE detention. But that was because they also weren't testing anybody in ICE detention. So if you don't do the tests, of course, you're not going to have anyone test positive.
Yeah. So it's a complete shit show. So Will, thank you for going into all of that. The other thing that is happening too with that you work on are labor folks who are you work on some human trafficking cases. And do you want to talk a little bit about like what that's about or what's going on with that?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people come to the United States on temporary work visas through the H1A and H2A and H2B programs. These are unskilled programs, what they call unskilled. They call it unskilled because nobody else wants to do it, right?
Essential workers.
It's very hard work. It does require skill. And as far as work that you put your whole body into, this work is very substantial. And so because of the way the H2A program, which is the agricultural guest worker program, is structured, there are a lot of opportunities and incentives for abuse by employers. When someone comes to the United States on the H2A program, they are very much at the mercy of their employer, right? Many times they don't know anybody here. With the H2A program, typically you're not allowed to bring any family members with you since it's a temporary work program. So you don't even have the social support network of a family. So typically you are 100% reliant on your employer to take care of your basic needs, to make sure that you have health care, to make sure you have PPE, personal protective equipment, not only to protect against respiratory viruses, but also to protect against the chemicals that are being sprayed on the fields, on the plants and the crops that you're picking, harvesting, planting, processing. And typically, the employees on this program they reside on employer property, right? So because one of the requirements of the H2A program is that the employer provide housing. And so the easiest thing to do in that case is to provide housing on the premises. So you have a situation in many cases where the employee is on the employer's property the entire time they're here. And as you can imagine, there are lots of opportunities for abuse of those workers. There's lots of opportunities for fraud, just straight up fraud occurring. And now with the coronavirus going around, these workers are 100% dependent on their employer to provide health care. And many some employers are good employers, but there are many employers that see, using healthcare as time away from the fields. And, basically many employers would probably say that's not what we pay you for, to go to the doctor.
Right. Okay. Well, listen, Will, we're running a little bit out of time. I want to talk more. You have like such a wealth of knowledge. You've been doing this. You've been an immigration attorney for a while now. What would you say to people who are not awesome attorneys like you, just regular Joe Schmoes like me? Like, what would you say to us? Like, what can we do to help? What can we do to make things better? So on and so forth. Like, elevator speech. Yeah.
Sure. Well, everybody has a role to play, right? Everybody can talk to their legislators, their lawmakers, and ask them to investigate the healthcare provisions and the general conditions of immigrant detention facilities. Everyone can talk to their legislators and talk to them about, why do we need such a zero tolerance orientation for immigration detention. You know, a lot of people also don't know or don't recall that when you're in immigration detention and you've been given a bond by an immigration judge, there is no bail bonding companies that will write a bond for you, right? So you're not putting down 10% of the bond, you're putting down the entire bond, right? You're paying the whole bond. So if the judge sets a $10,000 bond on your immigration case, your family is going to have to put up that entire amount of money. Whereas if it was a criminal case and your bond was $10,000, typically you could get a bail bondsman to get you out for $100 or $1,000 and change, usually 10% plus a fee. So there's a lot of problems there. Everyone can talk to their legislators and lawmakers about having an independent immigration court system that's not subject to the to the whims of the attorney general.
And never again, like if folks want to, we have the training available to folks to make it easy for you to like plug and play so that you can we have the scripts ready for you. We can help train you. We can make it easy for you to plug and play so that you can have feel confident talking to legislatures and our governor and so on. So
yeah, I mean, it's something you get used to, right? I mean, the first time you call a politician,
oh my God, it's so nerve-wracking. Yeah, the first time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's something in the time of quarantine. What else are we doing? I mean,
absolutely. Absolutely keeping the political pressure on is very important. But also helping immigrant-run organizations
like Mi Gente, like
Mix.
Oh, sorry. Like
Absolutely.
Cosecha, like Mi Gente, like Mix, movement to including Mix. Give me what's the
I can some groups include Mix, Raices, RAICES.
Right, Raices.
Excellent work for
Raices does great work. Yeah.
Yes, especially for the unaccompanied minors who end up coming into the country. As far as the farm worker relief, there's a wonderful organization called the Coalition of Immokalee Workers, CIW. They have a fair food campaign.
They do. Check out the fair food campaign. Definitely. Publix, by the way, still will not pay a penny more a pound. Like after 8 years. Why? I don't know.
Right, and for Publix, that's all it would actually take is 1 cent per pound to provide very meaningful
Publix has actually spent millions of dollars to not pay a penny more a pound. It's unbelievable to me. Sorry, Will.
It is. So there are many immigrant-run groups that I would say you can devote your volunteering to. They all have educational programs. You can always write to the detention facilities if there's someone who or you can always talk to someone at one of these organizations. Say, hey, give me a list of people who are in detention, and send them a letter. I mean, that's a mitzvah,
That's definitely a mitzvah. Nico or Jenna, do you have any questions for Will or anything to add?
No, for me, I'm honestly just kind of like listening here and learning even more. So all good on my end.
Yeah, Will is a fount of knowledge, definitely. He's definitely someone you can hit up and ask a question and he will have the answer for you.
Definitely a fount of something. I don't know if knowledge is it, but
Jenna, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Well, listen, Will, we will definitely put those links on our Never Again Action Tennessee page, right, Nico, for Mi Gente Raíces, Immokalee workers and stuff like that. So that folks will have a link to all of those. Mi Gente, Cosecha, and of course Mix, which is one of our local coalition partners. So we will definitely make sure that that's on our Never Again page. Thank you, Will, for giving us a little bit of information. You could probably do an 8-hour seminar on this stuff. Probably.
You're extremely welcome. It's my honor and privilege to be with you all this Sabbath, and I think that you're doing some great work.
Well, we're doing what we can, how we can, and when we can. We definitely could use more folks. So if you're Jewish, an immigrant, or an ally, don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very friendly. We like to have fun, and we treat people like mishpacha, like familia, like family. So because we're all in this together. It's just that some are harmed more than others, right? So let's do what we can to get these people out of camps. I for one am someone who wakes up every morning thinking about them, thinking about my friend who's in a detainment camp right now, thinking about all the families, the children who are suffering right now. It's pretty much the first thought out of my head when I wake up in the morning. So I'm grateful to you, Will, for all the work that you do and all the immigration attorneys that are doing this really hard work. And so thank you for taking some of your precious time with us. Thank you, Jenna and Nico, for being on this call, on this Zoom Facebook Live thingy. There was one last thing we were going to do. Oh, look at the cute. Okay. All right. Everyone stop.
More
Everyone
often.
stop. Are we seeing this? Are we seeing
Oh,
this
yeah.
precious? Yeah. Are we seeing
Oh,
this?
yeah.
Are we seeing this? Oh my
Yeah.
God. Oh my God. Oh my God. That is the cutest baby that's ever babied. Look at that punum. Oh my God. Okay, that's distracting. So we want to on Shabbat Assembly, because we are Never Again is a Jewish organization. We were going to do a little bit of Torah time at the very end, which is just like a little piece of like the weekly Parsha. Parsha is like the portion of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses that we read. We read the entire Torah every year, unless you're conservative and you're on a triennial schedule. That's a whole thing. But so this week there was a lot of juicy stuff, JEWCY, juicy stuff, get it? But because it was all about the Jubilee and about, about forgiving dead, the Jubilee year and all of that stuff. But basically, it's like the Torah is very specific about how we should treat each other, how we should treat the stranger. It says in this portion of Leviticus that when someone comes into your home or your realm, that you should treat them like family. And so, when people come and cross the border and come here to seek asylum, instead of throwing them in detainment camps, we should be treating them like family. The Torah tells us so. That's real quick Torah time, because we are a little bit over. Does anyone have any closing thoughts before we kind of say goodbye and Shabbat Shalom? No? Okay. All right, cool. Well, listen, thank you, Will. Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Jenna. Shabbat Shalom to everyone. If you celebrate, I hope that you have a peaceful and lovely Shabbat, and that on Sunday or Saturday after sunset or Sunday morning, you hit the ground running with doing what we can to help our immigrant friends. So Shabbat Shalom. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.